Welcome, everyone, to Family Talk. It's a ministry of the James Dobson Family Institute, supported by listeners just like you. I'm Dr. James Dobson, and I'm thrilled that you've joined us.
Welcome to Family Talk. I'm Roger Marsh. Thank you for joining us for today's powerful program, which was recorded during the 50th Annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. this past January. As you know, Roe v. Wade may have already been overturned, but the fight for life is far from over. The pro-life movement is still marching strong, especially on high school and college campuses nationwide. Our guest today here on the program is a dear friend of our ministry. Her name is Kristan Hawkins. Kristan serves as president of Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action, which is dedicated to abolishing abortion through training and education. The Students for Life Action Group puts on the National Pro-Life Summit the day after the March for Life each year in D.C. Kristan is also a political activist, an author, and a speaker. She served on the Republican National Committee and as a presidential appointee in the Department of Health and Human Services during the George W. Bush administration. Later on, while Donald Trump was running for office, Kristan served on his pro-life advocacy council. Kristan Hawkins has dedicated her life to protecting the preborn. She is married to Jonathan, and together they have 4 kids, Gunnar, Bear, Maverick, and Gracie. On today's program, Kristan will share with us about where we are in the fight for life after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. She'll also share some of the battles we still need to fight as well. Let's join our own Dr. Tim Clinton right now, along with Kristan Hawkins, right here on Family Talk.
Kristan, Dr. Dobson, his wife Shirley, have such regard for you and the Students for Life movement that's taking place. Just wanted to say thank you for what you're doing.
That means a lot. I certainly hold Dr. Dobson and Shirley in such high esteem. Every time I get a chance to see them, I don't know if they recognize me, but I'm the one attacking them, asking for hugs and pictures. So that means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, Kristan, we are in Washington, D.C. It's the National March for Life, 50th anniversary of the march. We're now in a post-Roe era. Yep. Today's a special day, I think, really meaningful to you. Yeah,
and I think God was smiling with us today. He gave us this gorgeous day and sunshine. I've been coming to the march for 20 years. I always say it's God's punishment. It's windy, rainy, snowy, sleeting. One year it rained, sleeted, and snowed all in the course of like 5 hours. My poor staff all got pneumonia after passing our 15,000 plus signs. Today it was sunny, 50. It was unbelievable. There's a women's march the actual day of the Roe anniversary, which is Sunday, and it's going to be rainy, and I hope it's treacherous for them out there. We really deserve to have a nice, sunny, beautiful day, but I think that only added to the joy that was out there, the feeling on the ground. I was able to go behind the stage, and then I actually went in front of the stage, and it was unbelievable, the amount of young people, 95%.
I was going to say, I saw I am the ProLife Generation signs like I have never seen before.
Oh, yeah. They bring them back.
The mall was crazy. I mean, it was just wow. But that generation, they call themselves the ProLife Generation. Mm-hmm. Kristan, you had Students for Life. Tell us what's happening with this group.
Yeah, I think the responsibility, we're so excited to be here, but now the responsibility really is on our shoulders. It's a responsibility that I'm taking very seriously. It's why the summit, the National Pro-Life Summit, is just so important, because this is the generation that now, we've become that first post-Roe generation, and the question is, what do we do now? Phase 1, objective 1, check. Roe thrown into the action.
Everybody marched to overturn Roe.
Yeah.
50 years.
Yep. Now we march because we want to demand legislation, protection at conception. We were out there today. Our team was changing the chants because, hey, Roe v. Wade's got to go, no longer applies. And so I was panicked last night of what was the chant going to be. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, something is over, then 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it's time to legislate. Like they came up with some rhyme, like Roe v. Wade has gone away. 5, 6, 7, 8. It's time to legislate. They have some kind of cool rhyme, and I was like, get out there, because that's why the march route changed this year. It's going up a Constitution, then it did across the mall, up Independence, and basically it was ending near the Supreme Court. But the idea was to end, right
in between,
facing the Capitol, telling these legislators, these elected officials who for so many years, have checked that box saying they're pro-life, now is the time to step up. You've got to do, it's not, in this post-Roe era, it's not enough to just say you're pro-life. It's what are you actually going to do about, what is the vote you're going to force? Well, how are you going to vote? What bills are you going to co-sponsor? And that's not just in Capitol Hill. That's also now the states, because with the Dobbs decision, we now know, and the Supreme Court now says, states can weigh in to protect these preborn citizens in their states as well. So it's the job of everybody, federal and state legislators. No one's getting a pass now anymore.
Yeah, Kristan, June 24th, the day that will go down in history. Yeah. Where were you, and what were you thinking?
I was at the Supreme Court, and I was the person who announced to the world the decision for all the TV cameras.
That is extraordinary.
It was unplanned. We had been at the Supreme Court every decision day since the end of March, waiting for the decision. I told our team, under no circumstances will this decision come down, and the ProLife Generation isn't out there cheering it. So we had been out there for 3 months. We camped out the night before, because by the time we got to June 24th, we were like, all right, this is really happening. There's like 2 more days left in the Supreme Court session. So we were there. We had a massive rally of student leaders. The decision came down. Our executive vice president, Tina Whittington, handed me the phone. I'm in front of the podium cheering, getting everyone ginned up. And I start reading the decision. The Supreme Court does not confer, there is no right to abortion in the Constitution. And, I immediately got sworn by every TV camera in America. And it was an incredible
gives
feeling.
Me chills.
It gives me chills, because it was not, there was no pre-planning, okay, when the decision comes down, and the funny thing is, I'm a planner. I'm always planning things, if this happens, and I don't know, we were just so ginned up, trying to keep the pro-abortion people from hurting our staff, and we had all of these security guards surrounding us. So there was no planning. So I would like to think we had pre-planned that, but it was a God moment.
Maybe God had something to do with a little bit of that.
He did. And I told God, I was like, I don't know, how do you top that, God? I'm only 37 here. I don't know how to top that now.
How exciting. We, this week, had Jeannie Mancini, head of the March for Life, on the broadcast. We had Penny Nance come in from Concerned Women of America. We had a lot of opportunity to interact with a number of the leaders up around here. I don't think I've seen the energy like I'm seeing right now. And that mindset shift that you're talking about of, this is a post-Roe era of, quote, let's not just make abortion illegal, let's make it unthinkable. Mm-hmm. Let's get to that place. That's where this thing's going. And again, I want to come back to what you're doing in particular, because this Students for Life effort is really encouraging. Tell us what's happening on campuses across the country. There's a battleground right there.
Absolutely.
And you guys are right in the epicenter of it all.
Yeah, no one has more conversations every day with those directly targeted by the abortion industry than our team and our 1,400 Students for Life chapters in high school and college campuses. We have presences now in all 50 states. Tomorrow at the National ProLife Summit, I will lay out a massive 5-year campaign to launch a Students for Life presence on every 4-year campus across the country. It's 2,700 campuses, public and private, which will be the challenges. These students, they have faced increased discrimination, threats, cyberbullying since Roe versus Wade has been reversed. Our general counsel, we've had to bring in additional legal help. I now have to travel with bodyguards to campuses. We have full-time security at our headquarters at Students for our, and most of our staff is never at our headquarters. It's, it's our staff's out on campuses every day. And so our students' safety is a huge concern for us now. Things that we've never really had to worry about now in this post-Roe era, with the extremism of the abortion lobby, the death threat we received just recently from Jane's Revenge at a training we did in Nebraska.
I was going to say, all these attacks on pregnancy centers and more have really heightened the awareness, Absolutely. I think, in the conservative and Christian community about how bad this is.
Yeah.
That we're talking, this is going to a whole different place.
I mean, these are people who fundamentally believe that you should be able to kill a precious baby. You should be able to literally dismember a child or induce cardiac arrest because they have less value than others. The strong able to kill the weak. And so this is following through, sadly, on their ideology. And this is where a pro-abortion ideology leads. We saw it today. There were 20 pro-abortion protesters up the Supreme Court. I went and said hello to them. They said hello back very strongly, and people can go to Instagram and watch them scream and shout at me in the background. But it's sad because the dehumanization of the preborn carries off, so far in our society, and that's what our Students for Life groups are facing on their campuses. But the good news is, even with all the fear-mongering, the misinformation we saw spread on social media, I mean, instantly, the mainstream media was complicit in some of these things, changing definitions of long-standing words, for example. Yeah. Even with all of that, we had a record number of conversations on campuses this year. We're still changing 10% of the minds of the pro-choice young people we talk to. We're changing 20% of the minds of those we reach online.
And you're not talking about people who are pregnant, wrestling with having a baby. You're talking about kids on campus who are pro-choice, just out there trying to figure out whether they're pro-life or pro-abortion.
Yeah, we will have 1 million conversations this year with Gen Z, and we will be changing 10 to 20% of those minds. We released a poll just yesterday with YouGov, through our Institute for Pro-Life Advancement, and the numbers, I think, are stunning for so many out there, how good the numbers are. I mean, this is the Gen Z, this poll was Gen Z voters. Gen Z voters, Gen Y voters are the largest demographic voting bloc in our country, at least church, the most liberal. And yet, when you ask them, you tell them what Roe versus Wade is, and then you ask them if they support codifying Roe, which all the Democrats in the House of Representatives voted for twice in 2022, they're against it, almost 60%. And this is the most liberal, least church voting bloc. So it's not all bad news, as what most people
pro-life movement's winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a long time coming, but they're winning.
Absolutely, because on the human heart, it's written to acknowledge that human beings have value and that babies are precious. Pro-choice people aren't born; they're made.
What's scary, Kristan? I was having this conversation with my wife, Julie. Julie headed up the Liberty Godparent Home at Liberty and Thomas Road Church for a number of years, early in our marriage. But Julie and I were just going back and forth about how, since Roe's been overturned, it's gone back to the states now. That's where the battleground is now. And some states are going rogue and insanity, talking about abortion up to the birth of a child. And it's just like unconscionable to even think that way. But it's there. Yep. And what's sad is that it's just ripping the soul out of America in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, what's the thing that I don't think anyone's really fully thought this through yet. And, the Biden administration's weaponized FDA, which came out 2 weeks ago and said that chemical abortion pills now may be sold at local pharmacies, CVS, Walgreens. There's
CVS.
Now, we need to be very clear. There is a lot of confusion amongst Christians about what chemical abortion RU486 is. It is not birth control. It is not Plan B. The intention of these drugs are to end preborn human life, beating hearts of children.
It's an abortion pill.
This is an abortion pill that Planned Parenthood prescribes to 11 to 12 weeks into pregnancy through the first trimester. These pills are dangerous. They have 4 times the complication rate of surgical abortion, 10 times the death rate of surgical abortions. 15% of the times they actually fail and leave parts of the child still within the mother. These pills are deadly not only for a child, but they lead to injury, infertility, and death of women, and they are the drug of choice.
And those are the stories that they're not talking about that. They're talking about is availability. Hey, here's conveniently go to a drugstore
and pick this up.
But you want
to talk about changing the culture. The sick feeling I get in my gut every time I go and pray in front of an abortion facility, that sickening feeling that it just sits there the entire time I'm out there, is now the sick feeling I'm going to get every time I walk into a CVS and Walgreens. And you know that they're not going to stop with, you may distribute. The next step will be forcing all pharmacies to distribute, forcing all pharmacists to give out abortion drugs, and then they'll go to over-the-counter sales. Their job is going to be to normalize abortion, to make America how Europe is. The majority of abortions are in the first trimester in Europe, and they're largely unprotested there. Majority of those abortions are done through pills, and they're not through these standalone abortion facilities. That's where the pro-life movement must be focusing all of our time. And to be honest, that's where I'm focusing all of our time, of redirecting our education efforts on campuses to this early abortion model, because according to the CDC, 91.3% of all abortions take place up until the 12 weeks in pregnancy. If we're talking about passing legislation, advocating for efforts in the pro-life movement here on Capitol Hill that don't stop abortions in the first trimester, we're not doing much.
Our special guest today is Kristan Hawkins. She's the president of Students for Life of America. She's an author, speaker, podcast host, human rights advocate, one of the strongest voices out there in this pro-life effort. And again, we salute you and thank you again for all you're doing. Kristan, before you go, a lot of moms and dads tuned in. Mm-hmm. They are so encouraged. I'm encouraged by what's going on. I come out of Liberty University. I spent nearly 35 years there in administration and faculty, and there were 11 buses with 500 students that made their way up to Washington today.
That's right.
And they're standing strong. Yeah. How do moms and dads get in touch with and maybe encourage their son or daughter to get involved with Students for Life?
Go to postroadgeneration.org. That is a simple website for pro-life activists of all ages. There's 12 activities you can get involved with. You can start a Students for Life group. You can help promote nonviolent pregnancy centers in your community. That's a great way. If you know a young person who needs to get involved, maybe they just want to become a social media advocate for the pro-life movement, we can teach them how to do that. So you can go to postroadgeneration.org or go to studentsforlife.org. And I really encourage all of the listeners, no matter your age, to go to thisischemicalabortion.com and get educated yourself about the dangers of chemical abortion, what it is, and how we can stop it. Because we've got, we cannot be fooled into thinking that the abortion industry, this $2 billion industry every year, is just going to roll over since Roe versus Wade was reversed. They've been preparing for this day just like how I've been preparing for this day.
Yeah, they sure have. And God be with us. Before you go, Kristan, you've been on the broadcast before. We've talked often about your children, Gunnar and Gracie. Can you give us a quick update on your family, how things are going, how maybe we can continue to pray for and with you?
Continue to pray for my family. When I'm traveling, my husband's homeschooling our 4 children, 2 of which have cystic fibrosis. I have another son, Maverick, who has a neurological disorder that was diagnosed last year that affects his ability to walk. But they're all doing good. They're all doing very well. We feel so blessed to live in a nation that has, the best healthcare system in our world. And they have access to drugs and devices that children across our world simply may never have access to. So we feel blessed. We feel honored. We actually travel the country now full time together as a family. So I can reduce my plane trips away from them. And often they come with me and they're staying at the campground nearby. It's really become a family mission. And I'm very hopeful that that life of mission inspires them as they grow up in the trials that they will face to always keep moving forward, to be this unstoppable force.
Amen. Well, we will pray that God will continue to just embolden you, strengthen you, encourage you, put his arms around your family. Kristan, before you go here, I want to wrap this way. I want to come back to this is the greatest issue and challenge of our day. And if we don't engage, if we are silent, if we are complicit in that we don't step up and have a voice. God forbid. When you think of 64 million babies now are gone. That's serious. That's the message that God burned in your heart. And I want to close out with that heart and share it with our listeners and challenge us to go with you on this journey.
If we fail to step up, if we fail to use this momentum that we have now, that phase 1 has been completed, we will never end abortion in our country. And we have to end abortion in our country. I think I don't have to get into all the other issues that our nation faces today, that the challenges that our young people have, that we now have a generation of young people who don't even know what their bodies were made for and who they were designed by. And we have a lot of confusion. I mean, this is the generation that hasn't been told what a woman is, what a man is. It is scary, some of the conversations that we have on campus. The conversation I had today up on Capitol Hill, folks completely denying that there's objective morality, that there's a right and there's a wrong, completely rejecting that. Our society, our nation will not succeed with that. We can't. It's impossible. And that starts, though, moving forward by abolishing abortion, by saying, no, there's objective right, and there's objective wrong, and this is always an objective wrong. Yeah. And we must treat these vulnerable people, these smaller, weaker than, just like how we would treat our neighbor. And because until we do that, we're not going to stop the division within our country. I mean, there's so many issues that you look at, the dehumanization of just, oh, well, you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, you're a leftist, you're a conservative, all the dehumanization that goes on with social media, just the nastiness that we see. It all comes back to we can't even agree that a baby in the womb is special and valuable. So we have to. I mean, for the sake of our nation, we have to save these children. We have to abolish abortion.
Well, down on the mall, I'll tell you what, it was buzzing.
Yeah.
There were tens of thousands of students. I think of leaders like Tony Dungy, who hit the stage, Franklin Graham praying over the march and marching with his daughter Sissy and others, all together. And these organizations like Students for Life, getting it done. And we celebrate that good work and pray that God would continue to raise up a generation to stand boldly for life. Kristan, on behalf of Dr. Dobson, his wife Shirley, their family, and the entire Family Talk team, we salute you and pray that God will continue to strengthen and encourage your heart. Stay out there on that front line, bold and courageous for such a time as this. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, there is so much more that needs to be done to protect the preborn. If you want to learn more about Kristan Hawkins or Students for Life of America, head over to our website at drjamesdobson.org/Family Talk. Once again, that's drjamesdobson.org/Family Talk. While you're there, you can go back and listen to any part of today's program that you might have missed. You can also share that link with someone else who would really be inspired by today's message as well. Again, you'll find that information at drjamesdobson.org/Family Talk. You know, we have heard a lot about protecting life today. And eternal life, of course, is a gift from God. As Christians, we are called to share that message, especially now. And if you have a neighbor whom you'd like to bless this upcoming Easter season, consider giving them a life basket. Now, a life basket is a way to present a neighbor with a wonderful basket of treats and goodies, and also introduce them to Jesus Christ, and then invite them to enjoy the loving Christian community at your local church this Easter. If you have any questions or if you'd like more information about life baskets, just call us here at Family Talk at 877-732-6825. Or online, visit lifebaskets.org. That's lifebaskets.org. Well, as spring is almost upon us, things are already starting to heat up for next year's presidential election season, if you can believe it. A great way to become more informed about current political issues and topics that could affect your family is by listening to the new podcast from the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute's Public Policy Center. It's called the Defending Faith, Family, and Freedom podcast with Gary Bauer. Gary Bauer is a familiar name to many of our listeners. He's the Senior Vice President of Public Policy here at the JDFI. He shares his unique perspective on current public policies through the lens of the U.S. Constitution and an unapologetic biblical worldview. Now, to start listening, just visit our main homepage at drjamesdobson.org and select the Defending Faith, Family, and Freedom podcast. Once you do that, you'll be directed to the podcast page, and from there, you can choose your favorite listening platform, such as Google, Apple, Spotify, or Stitcher. Again, you'll click on the Defending Faith, Family, and Freedom podcast when you go to drjamesdobson.org. I'm Roger Marsh, and from all of us here at the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute, thanks so much for joining us today. May God's richest blessings continue to be bestowed upon you and your family as you grow in relationship with Him. And be sure to join us again next time for another edition of Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk.
This has been a presentation of the Dr. James Dobson Family Institute.
Hello, everyone. Do you need help dealing with the everyday tasks of raising a family? I'm James Dobson here, and if you do, I hope you'll tune in to our next edition of Family Talk. Our main purpose in this ministry is to put tools into your hands that will strengthen your marriage and help you raise your kids. Hope to see you right here next time for another edition of Family Talk.